He went broke several times. He was in debt with the bank, in the trading company, and everybody else. But you know what? He didn't let go. He was so firm that this is what I want to do, and I believe that I can do it. So we'll do it with whatever it takes, whatever it takes. So for me, that's the message of the book. Hi again, everyone. This is Paul Loves to Read, and as you know, in this channel, it's all about spreading the love and joy for literature. And today, I'm going to share with you a nonfiction book. It's a memoir. It's called, I'm sure you know this, it's called Shoe Dog, written by Phil Knight, the creator himself, the creator of Nike himself. And it was published in 2016. Yeah, that's right, 2016. This has been a consistent bestseller, I believe, in most of the bestseller list, New York Times bestseller list, and so on and so forth. Recommended by Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, I think, even. Yeah, Bill Gates, and a lot of other known personalities and celebrities and media outlets out there. This is about the origin story of the company, the brand, the lifestyle. Everybody knows it, Nike. So it as in origin story siya. It started back in the 1960s, as in where and when and how did he come up with this business. So as with any origin story, it picked up at the point where he was fresh out of college. Phil Knight was fresh out of college, and he was trying to figure out what would be his next step, right? Where would he go? What is he gonna do? But he also has what he called, even back then, a crazy idea. So when you read the book, when you come across the term crazy idea, nakakapitalized siya with a capital C and a capital I. So that tells you that whatever that crazy idea was, even when he was still a kid, fresh out of college, he was really thinking of this. He was really thinking of a dream. He had that big dream even back then. So as I mentioned, he didn't have his own shoe design. He didn't have that. His first idea was to bring shoes from Japan into the States. So he did that. He brokered a deal. And as with any startup business, I'm not an entrepreneur myself, so I don't know the ins and outs of it. But as with any startup business, he was always out of money. For some reason, he was always in debt, even in moments when sales are good. Kasi marami siyang loans. He had loans from the bank, loans from his dad, from his business partners. So he's always in debt and never enough cash. But at the same time, the shoes were popular. It was selling. It was selling really well, and he needed to keep ordering shoes from Japan. So parang paikot-ikot lang. The money was just the money was just funding itself. So umiikot lang talaga siya. So it's one of those things that I guess every entrepreneur and every businessman, startup business would know. So I felt like that was interesting as well because, Nike didn't start out as a multi-billion-dollar company in just one day. It happened in decades, and a lot of heartache and defeat and betrayal in between. But in the end, they came out Nike. Like I said, it's an origin story of Nike. There's a lot to admire about the book. There's a lot to admire and learn about his story, and this is really more than anything. This is the story of Phil Knight, his life, and how his whole life basically is about the dream, about Nike, and how he got there, and the people he met along the way, the small close knit team that eventually became kind of like family for him. How they have this mad passion, this common passion and goal to make it bigger and bigger and get and innovate the shoes over and over, right? So those are the great stuff about the Nike story. They had teamwork. They are anti-corporate. They were a band of, the way I would see it, my impression of the book is that they were a band of kind of almost like outcasts and misfits, those types of people that sometimes are, you would think, a little odd. Hindi naman odd, pero different from you. because they have such big dreams and they have such big personalities and they're very focused, laser focused on what they wanted, that they don't have time for bullshit. They don't have time for, alam mo yun, mga frou-frou stuff. They just want to get shit done. And they will do it in the style that they know, in the style that is true to who they are as a person. So that kind of became the culture of Nike. So they're very straightforward, they're very frank. The way he tells his story, parang I can imagine that it could have been a tough workplace, and I could imagine that that type of management may not be, may not be ideal now, or may not be appreciated now. I think back then, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, when, like I said, when the world moved at a much slower pace and there was no social media and there was no internet, it was different, right? So you're not dictated, or you're not pressured by external pressure of what people might view you as. You're just so focused on what you needed to do. So you have no other concerns, right? So parang ganon. So they were very true to themselves. And again, there's a lot to admire about the book. I did say also in my book review that this is not a leadership book. This is not a management book in the traditional sense. He's not going to spew leadership advice. He's not going to give management tips and so on and so forth. No, it's absolutely not about that. And that's fine. It was fine. It was actually nice to just read about an origin story of a multi-billion-dollar company that has none of that. It just felt so real. It felt sincere and heartfelt. And to top it off, he is also a gifted storyteller, so he writes really well. He tells story really well. So it's entertaining in that sense as also. Don't expect leadership advice, management advice. It's not about that. It's really about entrepreneurship. It's really sharing about the ups and downs of opening up a business, of the risks of opening up a business, of the potential betrayals that you will get along the way, of the immense debt that you might incur, of being broke several times, and yet still having the tenacity and the grit to still pursue the dream. Because that's what happened to him. He went broke several times. He was in debt with the bank, in the trading company, and everybody else. But you know what? He didn't let go. He was so firm that this is what I want to do, and I believe that I can do it. So we'll do it with whatever it takes. So for me, that's the message of the book. He wrote this himself. Wala siyang ghostwriter. May editors siya, sure, but he wrote it himself. Yeah, I think he wrote this when he was yung ano na siya, hindi na siya management. He's kind of like retired from the daily operations na. So one of the constant in the book is Phil Knight's his conviction to win at all costs every time. He is a winner. He does not like to lose. Even when he was still a kid, he knew that he was a sore loser, and he admitted that. But what's more interesting to me is his concept of winning and losing, because it's not the conventional idea of losing. So let me quote him for you, which you will encounter several times in the book. He said, "You can give up, but never stop. Giving up is not losing. Stopping is losing. Never stop. Win." So yun. That's his, and to me that's very powerful, right? It's not your conventional type of, because you would often think that giving up, when you give up, you actually lost. But in his mind, giving up is not losing. Stopping is losing. So just don't stop. You can give up once in a while. You allow yourself that moment because sometimes, you just need that space. But you don't stop. You just keep at it. And that's exactly what he did. Now, I wonder if you can relate to that quote. I would love to hear if you have a crazy idea with a capital C and a capital I and how it went for you. I would love to hear it. Drop it in the comments and we can discuss. But yeah, and I guess in conclusion, this is a very good book. It's a very good book. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it. This is the type of book wherein when you recommend to a friend, hindi ka mapapahiya. You know that it's a good book. And I feel like everybody has a little something that they could get from the book. Even if you're not a business person, even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if you don't own a multi-billion-dollar company, you can relate to something here because this is just real life, and this is just, a story about a person who has a big dream, who dared to dream large, and who dared to pursue it at all costs. That does not happen every day, and you do not encounter that type of person every day, right? So it's nice to read stories like this from a first-hand perspective. Yeah, and one last thing is that you don't have to know Nike as a company. You don't have to be a fan of the brand to appreciate the book. Okay? Me personally, I have few Nike. Yeah, I have a few Nike stuff. I'm not a big Nike, endorser or fan, but that has nothing to do with the book. You will enjoy the book just for the sake of reading a first-hand perspective of from a person who created a company as large and as huge as Nike and as successful as Nike. Granted, they had their losses, their wins, their losses, their problems in the past, and you will read it in the book. But there's a lot to be learned from this, and I feel like there's a lot to be reflected also when you read it. Like there's a lot of introspection that could happen. You will reflect as well. So I thought that was a really good takeaway. So yeah. So there you have it. I hope that helped. I hope I convinced you. Let me know. I'd be happy to hear about your crazy idea with a capital C and a capital I. And I encourage you to read the book. Thank you. I feel like the word large is bigger than big. I feel like the word large is, parang, ano ba yung mga words, ano ba yung mga big words? Big, large, huge, epic, humongous, biblical. Di ba? I mean, yung may mga level of intensity. I just felt like the word large is more appropriate than big, dream big. It wasn't a big dream. It was larger than big.